Everyone, it's Shannon here for Honeybee Stamps. In today's video, we're going to create this fall card featuring the Lovely Layers Fall Foliage Honey Cuts, but we're actually going to do some hot foiling with the dies in addition to die cutting with them. We're going to start with the Lovely Layers Fall Foliage Honey Cut set itself. I'm going to hold up the die set so you can see these dies here. They have these raised areas for like the veins of the leaf and just basically details in the images. Those raised areas won't actually cut, and we're going to enhance those areas by hot foiling them. So I'm going to place some of the dies here down on my Glimmer foil machine, and once I get them kind of arranged on there, I will set the timer and let that heat up. Once that timer stops blinking, we're ready to create our sandwich. I'm just pointing out here that it's no longer blinking. I'm going to detach my platform from the base. I like to do that before I make my sandwich. And then I'm going to start by placing down some foil, shiny side down or gold side down in this case, actually technically polished brass. Then my cardstock. And then something a little different here, I'm going to place down 2 paper shims. These are actually heavyweight paper. They're 110-pound cardstock. And then my shim, and then lastly the top plate for my sandwich. Now I'll run the sandwich through my die cutting machine, and then you'll see the results here. You need that little extra thickness with the shims to do hot foiling with these dies. You might find that you only need 1 paper shim, but you definitely will need a paper shim in addition to your regular hot foil sandwich. And here are my hot foiled leaves. They look beautiful. All those details are hot foiled, and the dies didn't cut through. Now we're going to move on to doing some more hot foiling with some of the dies. This time I'm going to use some copper glimmer foil, place that shiny side down. Then I'm going to foil onto some Kraft cardstock, then my 2 paper shims, then my shim and my top plate. Now I'll run it through my die cutting machine, and you'll see the results here. And we do have a lot of extra foil sticking to the other areas of the cardstock, but that's okay because we're going to die cut these out and you won't even see those areas. Now I'm going to foil like normal. I have a sentiment here from the Fall Foliage Sentiments hot foil plates. I'm going to place down some polished brass, then some white cardstock, and then my shim, and then my top plate. So just my normal foiling sandwich. Run that through my die cutting machine, and then you'll see we have our beautiful foiled sentiment for later, since we're just going to get all that foiling done and out of the way. So now we're ready to die cut these hot foiled die cut images. I'm going to just pop the dies in place. You just kind of nestle them in. It's very easy to line them up, and then I use some pieces of tape just to hold them in place, run that through my die cut machine, and then I have all my foiled leaves cut out. Just repeated that process for this lotus flower, I guess like dried lotus, and another little image. Then I went and die cut this detail layer for the lotus flower out of Kraft cardstock, and now I'm going to die cut some stems out of some dark brown cardstock. And now we're basically ready to do some ink blending. We have all our leaf foliage images all die cut out. I'm going to start with this kind of maple leaf here and ink blend it with a barn door distress ink. Basically ink blend the whole leaf with this red. Then I'm going to move on to aged mahogany and ink blend kind of the bottom and the side of that top part of the leaf, just to add some more interest and some discoloration so this looks more like a fall leaf. Once I finish adding some of that shading with the aged mahogany, I'll then grab some gathered twigs and just add a little bit of this brown to again kind of just make it look more aged, make it look realistic like a real fall leaf. And then I decided to amp up the red a little bit more, so I've added some more of the barn door, and that'll actually complete that leaf. Now we're going to move on to this pampas grass. I started with scattered straw, ink blended most of the pampas with that. Then I'm going to move on to wild honey and ink blend kind of the base of the pampas just to make it look more, just to kind of create a gradation over the grass. Now we're going to move on to these 2 leaves. Now these we're going to really add lots of fall colors, starting first with fossilized amber and kind of adding it randomly. Then I'll move on to spiced marmalade again and adding it kind of randomly over this leaf. Then we'll move on to barn door again, adding a little bit of that red here and there, just a touch. And then we'll move on to some peeled paint. I really like to add some green to my fall leaves. Seems kind of opposite of what you should do, but I like adding that little touch of green. I think it makes it look more realistic. Then I'll finish up with just kind of touching up some of my colors, a little bit more intensifying the red, the yellow, and the orange. And then I'll finish with some more brown, which is the gathered twigs, and just kind of add it here and there to just, again, age it up, make it look more realistic. Once I finish with that gathered twigs, I'll be done with these two kind of multicolor leaves. And then we'll only have one last piece to do, which is this dried lotus. We're just going to ink blend the bottom portion of this with a little bit of that gathered twigs to kind of create a little gradation, and that's it. We're done for ink blending. So now we'll do a little bit of assembly. I'm going to start here by assembling this flower, just kind of gluing the two layers together, and then we're going to glue this detail layer for the dried lotus right on top. And these pieces are also hot foils, and there's a little bit of a shine to them. Then I'm going to finish by just gluing that stem to the dried lotus, and then we're done with the assembly of those leaves. Now we're going to move on to kind of putting our card together, starting first by adhering in a panel of some kind of light tan cardstock that's a little bit smaller than an A2 panel. This one is 4 1/8 by 5 3/8, and that way I just had this nice little border when I mount it to my white card base. I then arranged all my leaves and flowers, I guess, picked it up with a piece of press-in seal, and then I'm going to flip it over, and then I'm going to add some foam adhesive to the back side of all of these die cuts, so I have a little bit of dimension. Once I've added all the foam adhesive, and then removed the backing, which is what I'm doing right now, and then I'll pick up my press and seal, which will still have all my die cuts nice and stuck to them and in the arrangement that I like, and then I'll just press it down to my card front. Lastly, I'll finish this card with a sentiment. That sentiment we hot foiled earlier. I am going to double up the foam adhesive, add it to the backside of the O. That part of the sentiment is kind of hanging off, but the rest of the sentiment just has one layer of foam adhesive because it's on top of those already dimensional leaves. And that actually completes the card. I'll hold it up to the camera here so you get a good look at all the details in this really pretty fall card. I love the shine that the hot foil adds. I think it's also fun to have done two different colors of hot foil, and such a cool way to stretch these really gorgeous dies. I hope you guys enjoyed today's card and video. If you have any questions about the products I use, please check out the links below in the description. Thank you so much for watching, and I hope you have a wonderful day.